This is a video tutorial on how to work two-color Brioche rib. And specifically, this demonstration is to help you get started with the Flora fingerless mittens or the Flora cowl. When this pattern becomes available, I will post a link in the description, and if you would like to make one for yourself or as a gift, you will know where to find the pattern. The gist of doing two-color Brioche rib is pretty much the same no matter what pattern you're using, but I do highly recommend that you do follow the pattern for the project that you're working on for the specific, like, the color assignments and other technical stuff. What I mean by the color assignment is this. Let's take a look at this. So here you can see that the knit channels are in contrasting color, the light purple. And then in between them, the purl columns kind of are in gray, the main color. The reverse will be the exact opposite of this color assignment. So now this is the flip side. You'll see that the gray is now in the knit channels and the light purple in between those knit columns. Because I wanted the contrasting color to pop here, I have assigned that to be in the knit channels. So let's get started on how to do it. I will be, and this will be done in the round, and I will be using flexi flips, but you could really use whatever technique that you prefer. If you are using flexi flips as well, or the magic loop method, that means you're gonna cast on stitches on 2 needles, and I would divide that out evenly. So for example, if you're casting on 40 stitches in total, then you would put 20 on one needle and then 20 on another. If you are using DPNs or double pointed needles, then you would divide that evenly as well. But for me personally, I usually divide them in half and then take one half and further divide it into another half. So essentially, using 3 double pointed needles, I would put 1/4 on the first needle, 1/4 on the second needle, and then the half of the total cast on the third needle. But that's just how I do it. If you have another way that makes sense to you, of course, do that. So for this demonstration, I will cast on a total of 20 stitches. Let's see where we are. 4, 6, 8, 10, perfect. And we're going to connect in the round, because the first round we're actually going to work is not this color, the same color that we're casting on. Then I'm going to put them in the round first, and I do that. There are several ways to do it, and you can use whatever way you like, but this is my way. I simply swap places. The first stitch and the last stitch, I swap them out. So here I'm putting the last stitch that I casted on onto the first needle. Now it's the first stitch. And then the first stitch that I casted on, or the slip knot really, I moved it to the back, to the last stitch on the second needle. So now it's teeny tiny, but it's in the round. Okay. So to work the first round, which is a setup round, I'm going to bring in the contrasting color, and it's a repeat of a 2-step process. First, we're simply going to knit the first stitch. Hold on one second, let me make my stitches safer. Okay. So knit the first stitch, and then the second step says SL1YO, which stands for slip 1 yarn over. What we're going to do is to bring the working yarn to the front and slip the next stitch purlwise from left to right needle. Even though it's written out slip 1 yarn over, you actually do the yarn over first and then you slip the stitch. And then we just keep repeating those 2 steps: knit 1, slip 1 yarn over. However, we're not going to bring the working yarn to the back and then knit like you're supposed to, like in the traditional sense. We're going to leave the working yarn in the front and then we're going to knit. You see, by doing that, the slipped stitch is now partnered with this yarn over stitch. And you can see that very clearly in this contrasting color. And this is considered one stitch. Even though there are like two yarn going on here, it's still considered one stitch. And when you get to it, you will simply knit them together. It's treated as one stitch. So let's continue on and see how the whole thing develops. So we're on to the slipping, the slip one yarn over. So yarn in the front and then slip the next stitch purlwise and then continue on. Knit one. Notice I didn't bring the yarn back. It was in the front, which creates that cross. And then I'm going to slip one with the yarn in the front. And then knit, creating that overlap. Move the yarn to the front, slip the next stitch, and then knit, and then move the yarn. Wait, hold on. Oh yeah, I was right. Sorry. I kind of blanked out for a second. And then slip the last stitch. Here we go. And now we're going to swivel and work on the second needle. All right. And I'm going to move these guys more in. And I'm going to bring this. So here we go. Same thing. Slip one with yarn in front. Sorry, the knit one. Okay, so now we're going to knit one. Now, when we do that, we have to make sure that this is laying over like this. Remember how we are, this is the last stitch, the slip stitch, sorry, is supposed to have that purple crossed on top of it. So don't go like this to get it around. Make sure that this is laying on top, that yarn over is still active there. So now we're going to knit the first stitch on the second needle. Yarn in front, slip the stitch, and then leave that working yarn in the front to knit. And then it's basically the same, like I said, all across. And here is the last pair. Here we go. So that's round one, the setup round. And then there are going to be two more rounds, and you will just keep repeating the second and the third round until you get to the length that you need for your project. So the second round, we're going to use the main color, or the gray in this case, starting with the first needle, first stitch. We're going to do the slip first. So same thing, slip one yarn over. So my working yarn is in front. It's in front of my working needle. And I'm going to slip the first stitch purlwise, same thing like we did the previous round. And now we're going to do a purl stitch, but specifically a Brioche purl. It's usually abbreviated as BRP. We cannot simply insert the needle and purl because, similar to the previous round, we need this yarn, the yarn over, to be laying on top of the stitch that was slipped. So to achieve that in the Brioche purl, we're going to have to bring the working yarn to the back, around the needle to be more accurate, and then purl the next stitch. And that is the stitch that is doubled. You see the gray original stitch with the purple yarn over. So we treat that as one stitch, like I said before, and we're going to purl those guys together. So now your first stitch is the double, the original stitch plus the yarn over. And then the second stitch, the purl stitch you just did, is the single. And then you just keep doing that. Next up is the slip one with yarn in front. So there I go. And then I need to do a burp. Brioche purl is sometimes called a burp. You'll hear that. And that's how it's done. And then next is the slip. And then the burp. Again, bring the working yarn around so that you can purl it and create that yarn over laying on top of the previous stitch, the stitch that was slipped. So let's speed things up a little bit. And then here, a slip stitch, and then swing it around to, let me show you that one more time. So this is not exactly like clearly defined laying on top, but they are, because it's at the end. It's a little bit funny looking, but that's what it was. So that's the end of the first needle. We're going to turn it around and get everyone in position. Continue on with the second needle. We're going to slip one first. So again, notice that my working yarn is in the front, and then I'm going to slip it purlwise, swing it around to do a purl stitch, and here the two stitches, or what looks like two stitches, you just do them together. Swing it around, and then we go all the way to the end, just repeating these two very simple steps. And then here is the last set. Slip, and here let's take a look. So this was the yarn over. It is very easy to miss this when you get to the last stitch of the round, because it's just laying there. It's just laying there. So you have to be very aware when you get there to position it so that it is worked together. Honestly, you don't have to like be so specific and make sure that it overlaps like this. It doesn't really matter. So as long we lay the working yarn on top of the left needle just like that, and then now we are ready to work a burp or brioche purl. And that's just purling those two strands together like so. We're going to continue with round 3. First of all, I want to point out that my round 3, my project here looks very different than yours if you're following along. So I actually finished recording this tutorial, and when I was reviewing it, I noticed that there was a technical difficulty. The audio went out, so I have to re-record this segment. And I have already done several rounds. So here we are. Mine is longer than yours at this point because I have worked extra rounds, not on purpose, but because of the technical issue I encountered. So don't let this throw you. At the end of the day, what we're doing together is still the same. So here we are, round 3. We're starting with BRK, which is the Brioche knit. And you will know because it's the pair. It was the slipped stitch with the yarn over paired together. So we're going to knit those two guys together, just like we did the BRP, but this time we're going to knit it. That's all. And then we're going to move the working yarn to the front and slip the next stitch, and then just keep repeating that. With the yarn still in the front, knit the following stitch, which is a pair. Move the yarn to the front to slip the next stitch, and then just keep doing that. Knit, move the yarn in the front to slip, and then knit, move the yarn to the front to slip the next stitch, and then one more pair on this side. And then now we're ready to go do the second half. So for the Brioche knit round, you have to be super careful when you start the second needle. or if you're working with DPN, whenever you start the next needle. Remember how we ended with a slip yarn over, slip one yarn over, and it should look like this. But right now it isn't. So this is what we need to be aware of. If you organize your yarn so that the working yarn is here, and then you're going to knit, then you see how this last stitch is by itself. It lost its partner. In order for us to catch that yarn over, we actually did, but have it carried over to the second needle, make sure the working yarn is laid up on top of the at the end of the first needle, like that. Here, I'll do it again. So here I have the second needle ready to do my first Brioche knit. I'm going to turn it so you can see what's going on. This working yarn, I'm going to make sure it's like this, laid on top of it. And then I'm going to situate it so I can do my Brioche knit. Here I go. And then I knit the slip the next one, and then I'll turn and show you that it's all good. So here's that pair. Next should be the single, and then here's the pair. The purple, that was the yarn over that did get caught when I worked the first stitch here. So it's very important. Make sure that you're aware of that when you work on the next needle. And then we just continue on. We knit, Brioche knit with the yarn in the front, the pair, the slipped stitch plus the yarn over from the previous round. And here, if you get confused, let's say somebody distracted you and you lost your place in the pattern, in the written pattern, and you're like, oh shoot, where am I? You can simply look at your knitting. There are two telltale signs. One is the color that you're working with. What is the color of your working yarn? And that will tell you. And then the second telltale sign is looking at your knitting, your actual knitting. So the pair, the one with the previously slipped stitch plus the yarn over, the pair, if it's on top of the knit column, then you know you need to do the Brioche knit, because it makes no sense for you to purl it, and that way you're going to have a purl bump, and you don't want that, at least not for a traditional Brioche rib, right? So you want to carry this knit column all the way. So again, if you see your pair is on top of the knit stitch, the V's, then Brioche knit it. And remember, working yarn in the front. And opposite is true. If those pairs are on top of the purl channel, the purl column, then you know to do a Brioche purl. But right now I'm only seeing a single. So that means it's the slip stitch, yarn in front and slip that stitch over. Okay. And then here is one last pair, and that would be the end of round 3. So like I said before, basically to achieve this length or longer length, right, you just keep repeating rounds 2 and 3. Round 2 would be the purl one, and round 3 would be the knit one. And that's why in my pattern, I said to keep repeating these 2 rounds until, and have the last round be round 2, because I want you to end on the purl round. Here you have it, 2-color Brioche ribbing in the round. If you find this video helpful, please take a quick second and give it a thumbs up. Thank you.